Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Good morning everyone. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 3rd September 2021. Okay, let us see which are the important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. Yes, so these are the important articles. Let us take overview of all these articles first, then we will discuss them one by one in detail. Yes, mains related developments on page number 6 and 7, op-ed page and editorial page. Yes, first article, it is talking about, is monetizing public assets a good idea? There is one debate with experts on this topic on page number 7, op-ed page. So yes, the experts are giving the diverging opinions about asset monetization, and very good inputs can be taken from GS3 paper economy part. Okay, so the context is, recently the finance minister had released the national monetization pipeline. Okay, so we have been discussing this issue in the previous lectures also. Now few more inputs by the experts regarding the same topic here. Then UNSC resolution on Afghanistan and the analysis. There is one editorial on page number 6. Recently, yes, as a part of India's presidentialship in August 2021, in the last days there was one resolution passed on the Afghanistan, and the nitty-gritties involved in that resolution, will understand that, and in the second part the analysis is given here. Okay, so this is important from GS2 paper IR section, international relations. Then again one editorial on page number 6, breakthrough infections challenge. Okay, so recently there were some, let's say, studies which shows that there is increase in number of breakthrough infections. However, yes, they are limited in number, as let's say suggested by the expert groups. We will understand what is breakthrough infections, what is this particular challenge, and in future what needs to be, let's say, the measures to deal with this such kind of breakthrough infections. This is important from science and COVID-19 perspective, GS3 paper. Now specifically prelims related developments on page number 4, north and east page. It is talking about Baghjan oil welfare. New panel is appointed by Supreme Court to assess damages. So earlier NGT had appointed 10-member committee. Now this is superseded by the Supreme Court appointed a new committee to look into the damages on environment and ecology that happened because of this blowout from the Baghjan oil last year in May 2020. Okay, so it is talking about, let's say, the amount of compensation also is to be paid by Oil India Limited, the company which is operating this Baghjan oil well. Then basic location of this Baghjan oil well in Assam. Then Dibru-Saikhowa National Park, which is, let's say, impacted because of this oil blowout. So that is also important from environment section. Yes, Indian biologist wins global award for turtle conservation. Now this is also important news from environment section, because it mentions about conservation of 3 critically endangered freshwater species, turtle species that are found in India. Okay, so which are these 3 species? Basic information about that also, this is very important for prelims examination. Long wait for deputy speaker for Lok Sabha. Yes, we can understand that since 2019 general elections, the deputy speaker, elections to deputy speaker in Lok Sabha have not taken place. So that's why it is again in news. There is one petition in Delhi High Court regarding filling up of this position, constitutional position, and it is seeking government's response. So basics about position of deputy speaker, constitutional provisions, all these aspects we are going to revise here from polity perspective. And finally, practice prelims MCQs on this daily current affairs. So first article, is monetizing public assets a good idea? Okay, so yes, the context is, we know that a national monetization pipeline has been released, especially for asset monetization. So public assets are to be monetized, and these public assets are to be released through this pipeline, we can say list of these projects, to the private sector for further investment, increasing or improving the efficiency of these assets, and government wants to free up its capital and further invest in building new infrastructure. So from that aspect, some of the questions are asked to the experts here. So yes, opinion on government's idea of monetizing operating assets to build fresh assets. So the two experts are giving their opinions on the national monetization pipeline project or asset monetization idea. So yes, the experts are saying that there are two aspects involved in creating resources for further infrastructure project. Which are these? Yes, first is that creating infrastructure involves two aspects. One is that private sector investment in infrastructure, either through completely private sector or through PPP project. As we can understand that state has limited resources and private sector can supplement those resources in building the critical infrastructure, we can say. This is one approach. And second approach is that many a times it becomes difficult for private sector to invest in such long-term infrastructure projects, and yes, therefore the government needs to, let's say, come in and build that infrastructure by itself. So public sector led infrastructure building, and then in turn it can disinvest or sell some part or complete part of that infrastructure to free up that public capital. Okay, so in this manner we can say that public sector led infrastructure investment. In these two ways, basically the private sector plays important role in infrastructure. Okay, and in turn the government can generate some kind of revenues for further investment in new infrastructure, right? So the writer is saying that, or the experts are opinion that PPP is facing many such problems related to lack of clarity in the contracts. Let's say the questions or the problems related to land acquisition, the structural issues, we can say. There are, let's say, issues related to environment clearance to these projects also, right? So all these are resulting into problems and the delays that are happening, that are leading to cost overruns, and because of that private sector is we can say to some extent reluctant to come in contract with government through PPP project. Now that's why the government is exploring the second object. Okay, and in this particular pipeline project, monetization pipeline project, already built infrastructure, that is brownfield projects. Okay, so already operating projects, they are being, let's say, monetized here, and the private sector is asked to run these or manage these assets here in an efficient way, right? So in this manner basics are explained by the experts here. Then why would government choose asset monetization over outright privatization? So this is also important aspect. Why government wants to retain those assets even after the completion of lease of 40 years, 30 years, 50 years? So the arguments, like first of all, one of the expert is saying that, especially related to land, the government owns huge land and the infrastructure is built on that land. So government does not want to leave, or we can say that important resource, land is very, very scarce resource, and the government does not want to let's say lose on that resource. First aspect is this aspect. Second important aspect is related to, we can say that the government wants to only improve the efficiency of those assets which are at present not that much profit making. Okay, so those assets, in that assets the government wants the investment and not those profit making assets. So that's why it is not focusing on outright privatization also here. At the same time, outright privatization to some extent is also harmful for the government. Why? Because earlier privatization projects have not resulted into that much appropriate amount of revenue generation for the government, because the valuation of that property or that project infrastructure asset, so that is also becoming the problem here, right? So that's why the focus is on asset monetization and generating revenue here. Are there ways to ensure that there is no asset stripping by the private investors with limited time horizons? So basically we are talking about the risk involved here, and surely let's say there is risk of private investors not investing in such assets because end of such lease by the 30 years. Why? Because the private sector will invest more and more amount in that, and what will happen after such investment, suppose that infrastructure after 30 years suppose, so what will happen, the appropriate, let's say the asset utilization by the private sector will totally leave out the value of that asset. So what will happen after, let's say 30 years, let's say 31, 32, 33 years, so the government even after retaining that asset will not be able to have appropriate amount of revenue. So this risk remains, and for that purpose the experts are giving solution here. They are saying that we need to have scope for renewal of those leases to the same private sector. Okay, so this will to some extent provide some incentive for further investment in that asset by the private sector. Okay, so this is one risk here and the solution given. What about the risk of assets being owned by a few large companies and its impact on consumers? Surely this is one of the major concern here, because the bidding process is very important, and suppose what only 2 or 3 or only 2, let's say, or one bidder is there for a particular project, and suppose there is no alternative to that particular project. Suppose the writers are giving one example here that they are giving one example that Delhi Agra highway, suppose. So there is expressway is there, and there is no alternative to that highway. There is no alternative to that highway, right? And therefore either the consumers will have to opt for railway or airway. So suppose there is monopolization or let's say increase in the toll by the private sector. So it is the consumer who has to bear the brunt of such kind of situation here, right? So few large companies owning such assets will result into increase in the burden or passing of that burden to the consumers here. Okay, basically there should be competition, and when there is competition it will lower down the ultimate prices, right? So in this manner we should understand the impact on consumers. So how do we overcome the issues that have stymied past disinvestment and monetization efforts? So yes, surely the disinvestment process in the past has not been successful because of some structural issues. Structural issues, for example, set of bidders and bidding value. There is some kind of predatory pricing or bidding that is done by the large companies. Okay, so they set such value which is lower, and at the same time very small set of bidders is there. So writers or experts are of the view that the bidding process should be, let's say, make open to the global investors also, foreign investors. It will promote proper competition for that bidding process, and appropriate price will be explored for disinvestment and monetization also. So in this manner we should understand both aspects. So they will solve this risk or the problems related to disinvestment. Along with that, whatever the problems are there will related to, let's say, PPP projects, they should be also further solved through the experience that we have related to PPP projects in India. Okay, so small projects they need to be worked on the PPP projects where the private investment will surely be interested. However, the large infrastructure projects where the private sector is not having sufficient resources, the public sector needs to invest there. Okay? Any question? Yes. Noble intentions. There is one editorial. It is talking about. Yes. Tell me.
Sir, present government is going to be handovering the so many assets to the private sector. Then how it will be able to again to create a new asset for the public?
Yes, it will be able to, because what will happen when it will be, let's say, having the contract with private sector for the monetization aspect, the private sector will provide upfront capital to the government here through that contract. Okay, so private sector will have all these, let's say, the price that it is paying to the government later on through 30 years. Okay, suppose for example there is highway, and for that highway, suppose the monetization contract is done with the government. So the private sector will provide upfront cost to the government of that 30-year lease. So that is capital, right? This is freed capital for the government now, and that will be used for the investment in creating new infrastructure. Okay, and how private sector will recover that amount? Through, let's say, the toll amounts that it is going to levy on the vehicles for next 30 years. Okay, so it will have some kind of calculations in mind that this is the vehicle traffic, this much amount is, let's say, in 1 year this will be the revenue. So to some extent it will have some kind of, let's say, profits over the long term, but the government wants capital in short terms.
Sir, can we assume as the private sector is an intermediate sector to collect the money from the people now? Based on this process, the private sector is going to be only act as a collecting money from the people by the additional employment by creating, but then it is overburdened to the new infrastructure and new high prices on that particular any sector. So if the private sector has been introduced to anything, it will make more than the existing prices, not just below existing prices. It also going to be increasing the process. Then how we will able to increase a public motivative and public benefit process?
To some extent, it may increase. Okay, so consumer may have to pay, but again we can say that is distributed cost. That is largely a highly distributed cost. We try to understand if the toll is increased by suppose 2 rupees, 3 rupees, 5 rupees only. So per vehicle, and the number of vehicles that are passing on that highway are huge. So ultimately it is going to be large amount for the private company, but very small amount per customer. So the cost is distributed here. Try to understand this.
Okay. In this particular process, they are putting the small amount of money, but the total large amount is going to be concentrated on private sector only, sir. Not will be converted into more amount to the government sector and people. Based on this project process.
Surely, because private sector will not invest if it is not feeling to have, let's say, long-term profits, or profit generation is the ultimate motive for private sector. It will not invest otherwise. Okay, so public sector motive is different as compared to private sector here, right? So for that purpose, it will always focus on profit making.
Sir, one thing I have told, sir. Every building is going to be getting the private sector only, road construction, whatever the construction. Why not the R&D and PVC sector not able to take up that bids by using of Manrega workers?
No. Try to understand, Manrega is very different concept. Manrega is
whatever workers are unskilled laborers only will come to the only construction. Remaining engineers and everything will be coming under the PVC sector will come now. So they will take everything now.
Surely that is not the problem, but first of all let me clear that Manrega is different concept. Manrega is for specific locations, creating public assets in specific locations near the villages. Okay, so we are providing that employment near their houses, not away from the houses in MG Narega. Okay, we are providing the employment, unskilled employment near the houses, that to manual labor, unskilled labor. Okay, machinery is very less involved there, right? Now these infrastructure projects require machinery. Second thing, it also they are also located away from these villages. Okay, so MG Narega is not the, let's say, aspect involved here. Second thing, you should be aware that yes, PSUs sometimes they are also bidders. PSUs are also bidders, but we can understand that when the competitive bidding is done, the appropriate prices are suitable, or competitive prices bidding are given by the private sector. That's why large projects or all these projects go to the private sector. Okay, the cost estimation is very important. Suppose one of the PSU is having such kind of efficient cost estimation, and if suppose it feels that it will implement that in a cost effective way, then that bid may go to that PSU. But PSUs are not that much efficient. Okay, so this is the major problem here.
Can we say PSU is not efficient, we will call as administrative inefficient for the
Yes, all these aspects are involved there. Yes, delays, bureaucratic, work culture and all these aspects are there, delays in decision making and all, right? Okay. Yes, so next article relates to noble intentions. So the context of this article is UNSC resolution. This was accepted on Afghanistan under India's presidencyship at UNSC last month. Okay, so that's why it becomes significant. Now this resolution condemning terrorism and urging the Taliban to ensure human rights in Afghanistan. Now this is very important aspect. Now already, let's say, we can understand that though such resolution is adopted, this was led by UK and US. However, this was not accepted to China and Russia abstained from that resolution, voting to the resolution. Okay, so the second aspect, we should understand that there is no, let's say, consequential language involved here. That means if suppose Taliban is not following the human rights, or we can say upholding the human rights of the Afghanistan people, or let's say following the commitments related to terrorism, so there is what actions will be taken on them. So such kind of language is not there. That means the penal aspects are not involved in the resolution. So it is lacking much teeth, we can say that, for the action. At the same time, we can understand that such wording is not involved to some extent the assuage the China and Russian stand on this particular resolution. Okay, now what are the expectations from new regime in Afghanistan? We can understand that first it is talking about upholding human rights, rights of women especially. Second, we can talk about here is that protecting UN officials posted in Afghanistan. Third thing, it will not provide terrorist organization a safe haven on its soil. So all these are expectations from Afghanistan, and it will form, let's say, a peaceful government which is having the representation from the different stakeholders through discussion and deliberation. So yet to some extent such kind of, let's say, expectations are done. We do not know what kind of, let's say, outcome will have in future, near future. But in resolution these expectations are mentioned. Now limitations, resolution did not contain any consequential language, we have understood this. Now what is the scope for further India's engagement at United Nations to deal with Afghanistan situation? First is that India chaired 1988 let's say sanctions committee on Afghanistan is now going to meet soon, and India is chairman of that committee. So from that, let's say there can be some discussions and decisions can be taken, especially regarding to some of the terrorists, or we can say that those Taliban leaders which are involved in the violent activities in the past. So sanctions can be put on them unless and until some commitments related to peace and human rights, let's say upholding human rights, is committed by these leaders. Okay, so this is also important aspect. Then the renewal of UN assistance mission in Afghanistan's mandate is another lever that India can have here. Okay, so renewal of such Afghanistan assistance mission at United Nations can be, let's say, passed only after, let's say, commitment by Taliban to these expectations. So in this manner we should understand how India can play important role in Afghanistan process. At the same time, finally we should understand recently we have let's say started the talks with Taliban leaders, and that should be continued. We are at present largely focusing on a safe, let's say bringing all Indians and those who want to seek refuge in India, those who fear for their life in their own country. So this is the urgent requirement that we are putting before Taliban at present. In future we will have follow up on this issue, what will be India's stand further with Taliban here. Okay, any question?
So present they are going to be, in the future they are going to be facing the political pressure from the all nations now, because of they are not ready to fight with any country, but they are not able to form with local people cooperation, with local politicians cooperation, and some of the communication failures, the Taliban are going to be destroying some places and killing some, those are opposite workers of the Taliban. It may lead to political pressure to on the Taliban. Rather than to fighting with weapons, they are going to be fighting with mental pressure.
Yes, there actually Taliban is not organized in themselves. There are many factions within Taliban. Okay, and there are different tribal factions are also involved, tribal leaders are also there. So basically Afghanistan as a country is very diverse. Many, let's say, tribal regions are there, their leaders are there. Okay, different communities are involved, and representation to these communities is very important in national government. Any kind of national government will be stable only when there is representation to all. Otherwise there will be problems and instability, we can say, always. Now before forming this government, basically at present there need to be consensus among all these stakeholders, and surely at present that process is going on among the leaders, and we are expecting interim government in near future.
Sir, before forming a government, they need a unique identification from the UN from peace sector.
Sorry, I'm not getting what you are saying.
Before forming a government, they need to have a unique identification from the UNO, but in a calm way to procedure without any violence procedure.
Basically at present United Nations is insisting on Taliban to have peace, ensure the peace in the country, and second thing is that uphold the human rights. There should not be human rights violation. This is what the United Nations is insisting. It is not saying that you form the government at earliest, or you should not do this, you should not do that. Right now the focus is on maintaining peace in the country. Okay, so in future when the government is formed, it will have deliberations with the government representatives. Okay, yes. Now moving on to next article, breakthrough challenge. Yes, so what is breakthrough infection? Breakthrough infection is that when the person is vaccinated but still is getting infected. Okay, so the vaccination is complete with 2 doses, and still when the person is getting the infection, then that is called as breakthrough infections. And recently there are many cases of breakthrough infections. Okay, so especially the situation we can see in Kerala, that despite of high level of vaccination, the number of cases are also high. Okay, so this is actually worrisome situation regarding the breakthrough infections. And the second aspect, recently CSIR had conducted study on some of the health workers and doctors in Delhi hospitals, okay, max hospitals, and it had said that around 25% of those had breakthrough infections. Okay, so this is also we can say that the cause of concern. A similar trend is observed internationally too, especially in US and Israel. Okay, so breakthrough infection is going to be the next challenge regarding COVID-19. But we have to also understand that breakthrough infections are largely happening because of Delta variant, which is Delta variant and its sublineage. So the Delta variant is actually evading the protection created by these vaccines, and we should understand that all these vaccines are manufactured or developed and manufactured on the basis of the we can say the original virus. Okay, the original virus that was isolated from Wuhan. Now it has gone through mutations, and these mutations, this is natural for any virus to go through mutations to evade the natural immunity protection of any human body. Okay, so we can understand that virus is going to mutate to avoid antibodies and vaccines in future, and therefore what is the requirement, that all vaccines are designed already on Wuhan virus platform, they need to cover now Delta variant. The new vaccines needs to be tweaked with the Delta variant and its sublineages in near future, right? So in future we may expect to take new vaccines also. Every year we may require to take vaccines unless and until the complete, let's say, pandemic is turning out into the endemic. Okay, in this manner. But at present, this particular, let's say, consortium of different labs that we have to identify different variants in India, it has said that breakthrough infections reported so far within the expected numbers. So it is not the cause of concern in India at present. So that is a good thing, but in future the number may increase, so we need to consider, let's say, development of such vaccines in future. Fine. So as a follow-up, you should be aware about this COVID-19 aspects. Now, Baghjan oil well fire, new panel to assess damages. Okay, so new panel is actually set up by Supreme Court now. Okay, so Supreme Court formed the expert committee led by former Guwahati High Court Judge Justice B.P. Katake to assess the damage and the cost of reparation of Dibru-Saikhowa National Park and surrounding ecologically fragile areas of Assam, which were damaged in Baghjan oil well blowout in May 2020. Okay, it has substituted the NGT-led 10-member committee that was led by Assam's Chief Secretary. Now this is not going to further work. Rather, Supreme Court-led committee will provide the compensation process. Now the concept involved here, oil well or gas well blowout. Now what is this blowout? It is uncontrolled escape of natural gas or crude oil. The spewing is akin to volcanic eruption. So sudden eruption of this gas or well happens. This happened in May 2020 last year in Assam in this Baghjan well. Okay, so Baghjan well is purely gas producing well in Tinsukia district of Assam. In Tinsukia district of Assam, it is located in the eastern Assam region, where the oil and gas resources were first found in India. It was drilled by Oil India Limited in 2006. It produces around 80,000 standard cubic meters per day gas from depth of around this meters. Okay, so yes, it is located near Dibru-Saikhowa National Park and Maguri Motapang wetland is also located near. So it is feared that because of this blowout, these ecologically fragile locations, protected areas suffered some kind of damage. What is this Dibru-Saikhowa National Park? You can see the locations, basics about that. Okay, so Dibru-Saikhowa National Park and that Motapang wetland is also located near. This Baghjan gas well is also located nearby that, where blowout happened. Okay, so it is located in Dibrugarh, Tinsukia district of Assam. It was designated as Biosphere Reserve also in 1997. However, this Biosphere Reserve is not included in United Nations, or we can say that UNESCO World Heritage Network of Biosphere Reserves. Okay. Then the park is bounded by Brahmaputra and Lohit rivers in the north and Dibru river in the south. The forest consists of semi-evergreen forest, deciduous littoral swamp forest and wet evergreen forest also. It is also one of the last habitat of Devhans or spirit duck, as critically endangered white-winged wood duck also known here, and stronghold of black-breasted parrotbill. Okay, black-breasted parrotbill, one of the India's rarest bird. So it is important bird site also. Along with that, the wetland that is located near, that is also very important. For example, in its waterways that encompasses myriad wetlands like Maguri Motapang Bill. Maguri Motapang Bill, very important wetland which has the fish species like tiger of the river, the endangered golden mahasir. It is called as tiger of the river. Okay, so this species is found in there, right? So in this manner, the basic information about Dibru-Saikhowa National Park and Biosphere Reserve. Now, Indian biologist wins Global Award for Turtle Conservation. Now, this award is given to Shailendra Singh for, the name of the award is Baylor Turtle Conservation Award. Baylor Turtle Conservation Award for conservation of 3 critically endangered turtle species that were, let's say, on the brink of extinction, and now they are having some kind of population. So this is good thing. Which are these 3 species? Red crowned roof turtle, northern river terrapin and black soft shell turtle. So we need to look at all these turtles because they are critically endangered. This is important for prelims examination, right? So we'll have brief information about them. Look at the photos also simultaneously. As the name suggests, first one, red crowned roof turtle or Bengal roof turtle. It is also called as Bengal roof turtle. You can see here the red color near the head. Okay, that's why the red crowned. Now, this is the species of freshwater turtle endemic to South Asia. It is endemic to South Asia, freshwater turtle. Now, what are the threats? The poaching due to, let's say, meat and shells, drowned in fishing nets, water pollution, hydroelectric dams and habitat loss. Critically endangered species. Okay. Then we have northern river terrapin. It is the riverine turtle native to Southeast Asia, but we have to understand that this also moves to brackish water, to the mouths and or estuaries of the rivers for the breeding season. For the breeding season, it moves towards the brackish water near the mouths of the river or estuaries of the river. Okay. Now, exploitation as food item, loss of nesting beaches and pollution. These are the threats. At the same time, we should understand it is critically endangered species. In India, there is captive breeding project in Sundarban Tiger Reserve. Okay, so captive breeding in Sajnekheli Forest Station in Sundarban Tiger Reserve in India with the support from Turtle Survival Alliance. It is also found in Bangladesh. It is also found in Bangladesh. Here, this turtle is also found in India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Nepal also. Okay. Then the last one is black soft shell turtle. or it is also called as Bostami turtle. This is very unique. You know, this was considered as extinct species till 2002, but later it was found in pond in this temple, Hayagriva Madhava temple, located in Assam. Hayagriva Madhava temple. We have covered this earlier in the Hindu analysis, this particular species. Okay, so freshwater turtle found in India, in Assam and Bangladesh. It is believed that these turtles were brought from Iran to Chittagong shrine pond by Hazrat Bostami. That's why the word used is Bostami turtle. Okay, so they are actually respected by people, treated as sacred and respected by local people in Assam and Bangladesh. Okay, so this is how the conservation is happening in the we can say religious places here, but it is critically endangered declared by IUCN. Okay, so freshwater turtle found in lakes and ponds, especially near temples in Assam. Yes. Now, long wait for deputy speaker for Lok Sabha. Now, Delhi High Court asked the union government to explain its stand on a petition that said keeping post of deputy speaker of Lok Sabha vacant is a violation of Article 93 of Indian Constitution. Okay, so issue is once again in spotlight. So this post has been vacant since the Lok Sabha general elections happened in 2019. So 830 days we can say. Now, basics about deputy speaker. We know that Article 93 provides for election of both speaker and deputy speaker. Article 93, remember the articles for prelims examination. The deputy speaker acts as a presiding officer in case of leave or absence caused by death or illness of speaker of Lok Sabha. Then by convention, the position of deputy speaker is offered to the opposition party in India. Opposition party in India. It is by convention. It is not mentioned in the statute or rules of procedure in the Lok Sabha. Date of election of deputy speaker is fixed by the speaker. Can you tell me the date of election of speaker is decided by which authority? President. Yes, president decides the date of election of speaker, and once the speaker is elected, speaker generally decides immediately, let's say in the next sitting, the date of election of deputy speaker, but it is lying vacant at present. You should be also aware that it is not subordinate position to the speaker, and the deputy speaker is directly responsible to the Lok Sabha. Okay. So this is the basic information about deputy speaker. Then what should be answer to this question then?
Sir, answer these 2 and 3 are correct.
Okay. Yes. So yes.
B, sir, B.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So let us have a look at these statements about black soft shell turtle. It lives in both fresh water and brackish water. This is incorrect, right? So northern terrapin water turtle that lives in both fresh water and brackish water, not this one. Then in India, it is found in Hayagriva Madhava temple located in Assam in India. This is correct. It is declared as critically endangered species by IUCN. This is also correct. So that's why we have to find the correct statement. So 2 and 3 is the correct answer. Okay. Yes. So these were important articles. One of the student in the comment box 2 days back had asked the query here regarding how Chief Justice of India decided. When we were looking at that news, when 9 judges were recently appointed as just let's say Supreme Court judges, and therein we had seen that one of the women judges is going to be the Chief Justice of India in 2027. So the student is asking here that how we are able to decide who is going to be the next CJI, and that too after 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. Basically you should be aware that by convention Supreme Court is basically having CJI as senior most judge. So age wise we are able to decide which person in future is going to be Chief Justice of India and for how much tenure also. But this is by convention, and this convention is in recent times is not broken, but in past it has been broken, especially during Indira Gandhi government 1970s. Okay, so but later on after that this convention is followed in letter and spirit, but it is not mentioned in the constitution. Try to understand this aspect. Okay, so that's why we are able to know or predict which person is going to be the next CJI or after that CJI. So this is based on the age of that particular Supreme Court judge. Okay, on the seniority basis we are deciding this. Fine. Okay, so I guess this much information is sufficient for that. Any other question? Okay, then let us stop. We will meet tomorrow at the same time. Thank you.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.